Being the duly appointed time, I hereby call this Bastrop Economic Development Corporation to order. Public comments. Okay.
Can we get you to, we have a form over here on the side table to fill out for public comments. And you can speak specifically on agenda items if you will make sure you know which agenda item it is. But if it's just a general public comment, we're taking those now.
You guys have a PA system up there?
We do not.
I thought you were able to turn on the microphones last time.
We have, for the hearing impaired, we do have that on, and so that will work. But we do not have microphones for the PA system on this end of the room.
Can we fix that in the future?
I got it, but it's not good for everybody else. Okay. Thanks, Amy.
Do we not have microphones, or they just don't work?
They don't work on this end of the building.
I don't, you can hear these on the other end of the line.
Oh, I see.
Linda, are you ready to speak?
Sure. So there's no place, where do I stand? Right there? This is like the Inquisition. Okay. My name's Linda Curtis. I'm the Director of Independent Texans, and I'm here to ask you why the BEDC has a water marketer on the board, Joe Beal. And I'd like to know why you have Mr. Beal repeatedly listed here talking about water. And I know he's an expert, I have no doubt about that, but he has long been known, very well known, for using his expertise to wheel and deal a series of failed ventures that have cost his friends, partners, co-workers, and fellow citizens a great deal of money. Now, some of you know Mr. Beal's role in the takedown of the SB Houston organization, at one time the leading engineering consulting firm for the Texas water community. And his track record at LCRA is pretty legendary. Mr. Beal managed to bring the wrath of the legislature down on that important state agency while leaving a legacy of debt that took down not one, but two subsequent general managers who struggled to drain the swamp he created. Bastrop residents should be very concerned that this later disaster is directly related to the speculative water projects being promoted by the Beal gang for our county. Mr. Beal used the funds generated by LCRA's power customers to buy high, quote-unquote, local water utilities, but his successors were forced to sell low to liquidate the damage he caused by his rash speculations with public dollars. These utilities were subsequently given away or sold off at great cost to the LCRA, but Joe wasn't around to clean up the mess. Now, I would like to ask you all some questions. Mr. Beal, are you financially involved in any projects to export water from Bastrop County?
That's right. This is on the agenda, is that correct?
That is correct.
Can reply?
We can't reply to public
I
comment.
hear silence. Okay. Mr. Beal, are you financially involved in any projects
Would you please explain
that might
the
sell
account
water
block
to the
recap
city of
block
Bastrop?
block?
Mr. Beal, maybe you all can ask these questions. I would urge you as BEDC members to start asking these if you haven't already. Mr. Beal, what is your involvement now with NDOT, now that they have received a 46,000 acre feet groundwater permit? You were a consultant. Are you still now a consultant or just an investor? Mr. Beal, Mr. Kesselis, and Mr. Schiff, who's in the audience, when are you going to turn over your phone records and comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act? Just today, a few hours ago, I received the letter that the city has received now from the Attorney General's office stating, quote, "The easiest way to resolve this open records request is to release the information." So, Mr. Beal, Mr. Kesselis, Mr. Schiff, Are you going to now spend city dollars fighting the Texas Open Meetings Act? Mr. Kirkpatrick, your agendas used to tell us who was asking for an item, and I'd like to know who asked to remove J.C. Brown. You can't talk to me? You can't answer that question?
We can't provide comment back during public comments.
Let me ask the chairman. My understanding, at least at the city council, when we have something that's not on the agenda, we can't reply to it. Is that correct here?
That is correct.
So we can't answer these questions that are being asked to us, and is that correct?
Not in an open forum, where we just have public comments from the audience.
So we're just listening, right?
That's correct.
But
Thank
your executive director cannot answer that question about the agenda, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Kirkpatrick, who's going to decide who this interim attorney is? Is that going to be you, or is it going to be the board? Have they been adequate? Are they going to be given the opportunity to hear from people who might want to take this position now that it's pretty clear that you have the votes, especially with Mr. Beal here, to remove J.C. Brown? So is that going to be opened up, or are you going to try to make that decision through some of the bylaws changes that have taken place? I do want to just let you all know that this community is going to remember what you're doing to J.C. Brown. I know that not all of you feel the same way. I look forward to hearing what you have to say about this, but we're not going to let happen to Bastrop what Mr. Beal did to other good organizations. So let the fight begin, I guess.
May I respectfully ask that everyone speak up, because it is extremely hard to hear out here, not just you all on the dais, but when people are speaking to you, we can't hear back here.
Thank you. May I have a comment? I came to
people
another
sign up
meeting
if they're going to talk?
and we couldn't hear them either. So if we have public meetings, could you not make microphones available? Please, because that's something I can't hear.
Does that have to be on the agenda before you get into that?
We've elected to hold our meetings in this end of the room in order to have a more open and environment for y'all instead of the board sitting at the dais.
That's great.
With this end of the room, though, comes the technical difficulties of microphones aren't wired down here to go into the PA system. It's something that we've looked at. It's an expense that I don't know whether it would be a BEDC expense or a city expense, because this is their building. And it's something that we will take under advisement, and we'll look at it for future meetings and what it would take to bring a microphone drop down here in order to provide the daisy chain for microphones for the board, unless the board decides that they would like to meet at the dais and have a more formal environment. But we've elected to meet down here, or the board has elected to meet down here to have a more casual and open conversation with the community. I understand with the large crowd today that it is going to probably provide some hearing if everybody doesn't speak up. We do have the hearing impaired microphones on, and so there are the hearing devices are available tonight if you would like to use one.
It's great that you afforded an opportunity for the audience to be more participative with you, collect down at this end of the hall. It would be great if we could hear you what you were saying so we could participate. And I can tell you, and I'm not an expert, but an extension cord from Radio Shack, a microphone coax, from one of your microphones down here, will give you all the ability to talk through the existing systems. Not a big expense. If you need that, I'll leave you my number. Although I don't I can help you out.
Kay, you'd like to speak, please?
Yes, twice now I have come and other people have come and asked you guys to please get some way that we can hear. If I have earphones in because I'm hearing impaired, I can't hear anyone else in the audience. So it's very tricky. There is no reason whatsoever that this setup cannot be done down there. There's just no reason. And it's not fair. It's a public meeting for the public. If you do not supply hearing for the public, then you're out of line.
Okay, any other public comments?
Yes, I have one.
Who do I give it to? Okay.
I would like to speak on a request that was made of this body to fund small businesses going to John Shallett's destination marketing next spring. The request was for $10,500, which would send six business owners plus one staff person, either someone from BEDC or someone from Main Street, to the destination marketing. In return, by sending a group, a large, John Shallett would come back to Bastrop, work with the organizations in that group on how to make that Bastrop and the business a destination. He would also work with a large body of people. I was told that this board will not consider this request this year, and that you might consider half of it next year along with the DMO. That's a total of, the request was for $10,500. It costs $1,500 a person for it. Each person going would be responsible for their own travel expenses, so they would be vested in it. What I don't understand is, when you're trying to develop business, that's your job, why such a small, pitiful amount of money, little bit amount of money for you guys, but a huge, huge asset for a small business that's trying to make it. Why can't you fund that? It seems very short-sighted to me. You celebrated the fact that you brought in a medical company that's going to create 7 full-time jobs in the next 10 years. I'm sorry, that's great. But if you can invest in 6 small businesses every year, you might possibly, for a lot less money than what you've probably put in with this medical group, with incentives and such, you might possibly grow more business, more jobs. So I'm just frankly appalled. The word on the street is that BEDC does not really care about the small businesses. And in particular, don't care about the small downtown businesses. But this would be for any small business that has the possibility of pulling in people outside of a 15-mile radius. So it appears that maybe that word on the street is true. So I'm hoping that you will reconsider that $10,500 request, so that, and by the way, I can't benefit from it because I paid my own way and went. And while my traffic is about 12% down, as are most of us in town, my sales are still running at 33% increase over last year. So it is beneficial, and it is a good thing to do, and I highly recommend that you reconsider that.
And I really would like to respond to that, but I can't. But we'll save it for another time. But I must say, I think that you had some really great points there, and I assure you we're gonna take a look at it. Otherwise, I just can't respond.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a presentation. Do we have any more while we're at it?
So Mr. Schiff is here tonight. He served many years on the EDC board. Kevin took his place last month, and his BEDC history, we have a plaque for his years of service on the EDC board, and appreciate his time and effort and energy that he put into the service of this board and to the community. Did you break it, Mary?
You don't have to speak here.
Thank you, Gary.
Very good. Mayor, I'd just like to say, as vice chair for a number of years. You were a great member of this organization. I really appreciate your service.
Well, thank you so much. And, I enjoyed working with all of you, and, I think we accomplished some good things over the years that I was here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I wanted to say that one of the things I've been trying to do this year is to get our membership on city council down to one person on this board. And Gary was elected to the city council with a year left on his term. And I decided not to appoint him in June, and have been working with an effort to try to figure out some way to keep only one person on the council. And I would just as soon that be Gary, but our bylaws hadn't allowed that to happen. It's been taking forever, and I just didn't think it was right to Kevin to hold up on him any longer. I wanted him to have as much time, as much percentage of that 2-year term as I could. So Gary, according to our attorney, was sitting on the council waiting for someone to be appointed to take his place, and I appreciate his having done that in, I guess, June, July, and June and July. So Gary's been a good soldier all the way through. He understood I wasn't going to reappoint him, and I appreciate very much your filling in until I got myself together where I could make that appointment of Kevin. So you're a much more valuable person, I think, than some of us on here. I'm sorry that you're gone, but it's time for us to have only one council member on this board at a time. So thanks for your service.
Okay, 3.4?
No, 3.2. Approval of meeting minutes.
Sorry about that.
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of August 15th, 2016 as submitted.
Second. Priscilla, second. All in favor?
Aye.
3.3.
3.3 is the financial summary ending August 31st. As you can see, we've exceeded, with a month ago, we've exceeded our budgeted revenues by 105%, or $2,038,000. Actual expenditures to date are $1.42 million, or 73.5% of budgeted expenditures. Looking at a summary of revenue, you'll see a little bit of a jump. In August, we did have a lot closing in which those funds went into an escrow account, and you'll see in sales tax that we're year over year up in sales tax by about $11,000. Looking at our expenditure chart, we're running right about where we have all year, remembering that our expenditures against this chart is skewed a little bit in debt service because we're not spending our full budgeted amount at this point, and so it looks larger than it really is if we were at 100% of expenditures. So that always continues to go down. Expenditure chart to graph, when you look at our expenditures year over year, and then for the year we're fairly consistent in the range that we run on a monthly basis. The three spikes in there in January, April, and July are months that we make sales tax rebate payments to two developments that we have economic development agreements with. This is our projected fund balance at the end of 9/30 from the beginning of the year at $3.2 million. Y'all have detailed financials in your board packets with the balance sheet and financial statement for the month ending August. Other than the closing, I didn't see anything in there that was a red flag that needs to be brought to the board's attention.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion to accept?
Yes.
We have a motion. Is that you, Christie?
I'll make a motion that we accept the financial summary for the period ending August 31, 2016.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. 3.4 is discussion on legal services. And it is, its style is a continued retention or termination of the law office of Joe Christie, Brown PC, as the attorney for the corporation.
Can you speak up, please?
You know, the item is consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding the EDC's legal services, including, but not limited to, the continued retention or termination of the law offices of Joe Christie Brown, PC, as the attorney for the corporation. 2, issuance of a request for qualifications for legal services and establishing an ad hoc committee comprised of the executive committee and executive director to review the submittals and provide a recommendation to the corporation. And 3, instruct the executive director to retain the necessary legal services on an interim basis should the engagement between the Bastrop EDC and the law offices of Joe Christie Brown, PC, terminate, and until the corporation engages in other legal services. I would like to comment on this just briefly. I would point out that Joe Christie has been a very viable part of this EDC, and that especially over the last several years, I found myself working very closely with her on a lot of different intricate agreements and just basically brainstorming many things that had to do with our economic development and economic growth in the way that we run the EDC. And frankly, I've found her to be an incredible resource and a true professional and a great attorney, understanding much about what goes on in EDC and municipal law in general. I know that we've had some controversies over the last, I guess, month or so, 2 months, maybe more than that. But in my opinion, it never bled into the EDC. So with that said, I know that there's some consideration going on here in this 3.4 that I believe would require some discussion. And so with that, if there's anybody that has anything they'd like to add to my comments, I would appreciate you doing so.
Well, I mean, I'm still new to the board, but I don't know, are we having a problem with, you know? I don't understand why the issue's been brought up. If we aren't having a problem with her services or advice she's given us, or if she's not having a problem with us, why is it? Everybody's staring at me. Is that the wrong question?
It's not on the agenda.
It is the agenda.
Yeah, but it's impromptu.
From a staff perspective, J.C. Brown serves us well in our day-to-day legal matters. She serves us well in our project matters. We have no objection to either way. We don't have a preference in what the board does here. Board members requested that this be an item that was considered and brought to the board, and it is the right thing to do for the board at this point to consider it, considering at one point prior to this, she was counsel both for the city and the EDC, and with the transition going on at the city.
Could you speak up, please?
With the transition going on at the city with the interim city manager and the interim city attorney that's currently in there, in place, this board, it's been a very long time since it discussed legal services, and it's a conversation that needs to be had.
So there wasn't an issue that I wasn't, you know, there might have been.
There's not a specific issue that from a staff perspective, that brought this on. It was requested by board members. It's a timing issue related to everything else going on in the community. The board hasn't had the discussion in many years.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something that I wasn't aware of.
Correct.
Since I was new to the board. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
I asked Sean to put this on the agenda, and there may have been others that asked, I'm not aware. But I asked him to put it on the agenda for discussion because of the situation that does exist and did exist within the city of Bastrop and JC's services. I felt like it was important for this group to have a discussion, make whatever decision the group feels like is the best decision for BEDC. And I fully understand that BEDC is a separate entity from the city of Bastrop. I fully understand that. But I also fully understand that BEDC and the city are intertwined. That's just the reality, and so I felt it was appropriate and good business to have the discussion.
So what is your objection?
I think, you know, we have one of two directions to go here, and the direction that I would like to see us follow is the direction of the RFQ, where J.C. Brown would stay on during the RFQ and hopefully participate in the RFQ, and at the end of that, she might be, you know, the ultimate attorney for the EDC, or maybe she wouldn't, but at least we would go through the vetting process, and she would have an opportunity to participate in that RFQ. You know, to me, that I think it goes without saying that we on the board truly do understand her significance here, and the great work she's done for us. And so I would hope that at the end of this vetting of the RFQ that she would be our attorney, and that's the way this is styled. You know, we've got members of the board that brought this to the board, and so I'm voicing my opinion on what I'd like to see happen, and I'd like to see her remain, frankly. And I'd like to see this vetting process take place at the RFQ level, and if it turns out that, you know, that I'm correct, that she's going to be the best candidate for the job because of her background and abilities, then so be it.
Can you speak
I
up?
guess excuse me. I guess what I'm yeah. It's all because you and that drink.
We do have two people that would like to speak on the subject, if y'all would like to hear from them first.
Sure.
Nobody can hear what y'all are saying.
Y'all might as well be talking about silence.
Ann Beck, would you like to come speak now, please?
I don't have a prepared speech. I'm just going to speak from my heart and how I feel as a citizen. Before I made the decision to come to you, I called Sean up Friday and I asked him 5 questions. And my questions were, is JC the only lawyer that you all use in your negotiations? And he said she's capable of being the only lawyer, but when you all get into situations that you feel like you need an expert, that you do turn to an expert and you do hire someone else. My second question to him was, were the legal costs exceeding the budget that had been set aside, you know, for BEDC? And he said, no, we were within the budget. My third question to him was, how does he work with JC? How does he feel like continuing working? And he said he had a very good working relationship with her, that he had known her before he even came to the BEDC as the director. And when all of these questions were answered, then My thought is, and as it was from the very beginning, is let's not destabilize anything anymore. We are in the process of looking for a new city manager. We are in the process of looking for a new lawyer. And so please, can we please not be in the process of looking for a new lawyer for BEDC. We have a lot of decisions to make within the city, and I know you all are somewhat dependent, but at the same time, you are dependent upon the city controlling what you do in the way of finances, etc. So please let the status quo remain, particularly since she is an excellent person and is somebody we can all rely upon for her answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Moore?
Should have gone before Ann, she took most of my thunder. Of course, this body has the right to go out for an RFQ for whatever it wishes to go out for. But I could not agree with Ann more that this city has lost a lot of institutional memory with the departure of Mike Talbot and J.C. Brown. I'm not talking about whether it was time for them to go or not. That's not where I'm going with this. But BEDC has talked in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mills, about getting an attorney that was not necessarily the city's attorney, because you wanted your own independent attorney to make recommendations and rulings for you. Not that you're anything wrong, but you looked at that. And I couldn't agree with Ann more about the instability. Mr. Townsend brings a wealth of information, but it's information that is only a few weeks or a few months long. And there's a lot going on in this town, a whole lot going on in this town that you just can't know right now. You're learning fast. I always heard good comments about you, but you're learning fast. The municipal governance section of the Texas Code is the largest section of law there is. You don't learn that overnight. J.C. Brown has spent 30-some-odd years learning it. This board does not need to be destabilized anymore by getting somebody new. If you want to go for an RFQ later, maybe. And if you have a problem with J.C., I would hope that you would talk to her about it. She's a professional. She knows what she's doing. She's a class act. And she deserves respect from this board for the years of service that she has given. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that the last group? And I had a question, which I know I'm not going to get an answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you doing this because Mr. Kesselis or Mr. Beal is forcing the question on this because they want JC out of the way so they can let BEDC be fully available to their friends and their cronies? Is that why this is happening?
No.
An answer.
This one I can talk to you.
Well, how many people here, who have you spoken to about this?
I've talked to one council member, one board member about it. And, I'm not forcing anybody into anything.
Can I ask who that board member is?
No, you can ask, but I'm not going to tell you.
It's up to you all to be asking questions.
I wish I had the kind of power that I could tell people what to do on this board, but I can tell you I don't.
Councilmember McEnroe.
Sean, did you talk to anybody besides Mr. Beal about the possible termination of J.C. Brown on this council?
On this board? Yes.
On this board? Did you talk to Ms. Koch?
I did.
Did you talk to Mr. Kesselis?
I did not. Not when it came to crafting this agenda item, no, I did not.
Okay. And did you talk to any of these other people?
Not while crafting the agenda, no.
Not while crafting the agenda?
That is correct. Actually, Drusilla and Kevin, we did not talk to them, and I called Kevin today to make sure he understood why the agenda item was on there, and I visited with Drusilla this morning.
Did I don't think that these two new members know too much about it, but did Ms. Koch ask you to be a part of, to bring this up too, as well as Mr. Beal?
We had conversations about it, yes.
Can you tell me what the reason was? Oh, Ms. Koch, could you tell me what the reason was that you wanted to bring this up?
Considering...
Can you speak up, please?
The relationship right now with our legal counsel and the city, apparently that we all work together, and honestly, it's always good to ask questions. Is this the best legal counsel at this time? Will this destabilize the board? No, not at all. The council, the staff is solid, they're good, and this is ancillary to their function. We're already using other legal counsel for a lot of critical items.
What, did you have a particular concern about the service that J.C. Brown is giving to you as
No.
EDC? Because it has nothing to do with the city.
I think having an RFQ is a good idea.
Why?
Why not?
I'm asking you, why, what reasons do you feel that needs to come up?
I think, I'm not going to get into an endless rhetorical question here. I do think...
Just answer the question, one question. Why? What has she done that makes you feel there's a problem?
I'm going to support the RFQ suggestion.
I bet.
Thank you.
So you're not going to answer my direct question?
Well, I thought I had.
Well, you haven't. What has J.C. Brown done that makes you question that she is not supplying an excellent service to this council?
We are using other councils as well as her, and there's a certain point in where it's healthy in every organization to say, is this the best person? And I think it's time to ask that question.
Did you talk to any other board members besides Mr. Beal about this?
I did not talk to Mr. Beal about this.
You only talked to Sean about this?
Sean, and I just mentioned something to Kevin walking in the door.
Okay, thank you.
Carlos?
Thank you for the opportunity. Y'all have the right to make a decision regarding council for this board. I have a business in Bastrop. I have made a substantial investment in Bastrop. If I appreciate the topic coming up tonight, but if y'all make a decision to retain Ms. Brown or not, I want you to keep your focus on the main purpose of this group. In my opinion, I need jobs in Bastrop. I need several other things that this group is working in Bastrop. When I come to the meeting and I come to the city council meetings and I come to meetings like this is not putting the focus on the main purpose of your role. And I believe is affecting, I know the activity of the council over the last year and what we have right now and what makes the newspaper on a regular basis is having an effect on my business. So make a decision, move on, but let's get back to focusing on jobs and creating jobs in Bastrop. That's what my business needs. That's what I'm focused on. And that's what I want y'all focused on. Okay? Please focus on jobs. Thank you.
That's everybody I have that signed up.
Okay, if there's not further discussion, I'll make a motion. I'm going to move that we terminate the present services of the law offices of J.C. Brown as attorney for the corporation. And item 2, that we issue a RFQ for legal services and establish an ad hoc committee comprised of the executive committee and the executive director to review the submittals and provide a recommendation to the corporation. And 3, that we instruct the executive director to retain the necessary legal services on an interim basis should the engagement between the, because we're terminating those services.
We have a motion.
Second.
So now we can discuss?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm just a small business, but I have been over there for 20 years. And I think that one of the reasons you do that is that you don't pick something that's not broken. I think there's several issues that we have to deal with, and if it's not broken, why are we spending the energy to go fix it? So I'm sure the staff have better things to do than to go out for an RFP. I mean, if there's an issue and if we're having a problem, then I understand that. But if we're not having a problem, I don't understand why we have to go through the process if it's not necessary. And I've asked if it's necessary, what the problem is, and I haven't gotten any answers. So I just wanted to voice that or have any other points. So that's it. That's all I have to say.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Can you call the board?
What's the result, or do you need to call the roll?
Yeah. Hold the board.
You want to do that?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that? I mean,
Let's do it.
I'll do it. Christie Koch,
Yes.
Joe Bill,
Yes.
Mayor Kessler,
yes.
Kevin Bunkett,
Yes.
Drusilla Rogers,
No.
Steve Mills.
No.
Call it recess. Call it recess. Because we need to figure out how we're going to move forward.
We need to call for a brief recess.
Executive session.
No, we're going to just take a recess. Yeah, we're going to take a 10-minute recess. All right, if everybody can take their seats and quiet down, we're going to reconvene this meeting, or Steve will reconvene this meeting as soon as we get everybody back to their seats.
I would have known this. Picking up that spot on my first.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 3.5, consideration, discussion, and possible action on a request to fund water and wastewater infrastructure for a proposed office project at 2204 Highway 71 East, being developed by Gary Schiff. Gary, we're going to pull this from the agenda because these guys have not had a chance to vet it. They want to have an opportunity to go in and take a look at this.
Well, I'll go ahead and give you the,
Okay.
I'll please pass out the meat of the material here.
Steve, got a copy?
You never give me a copy?
You got one. All right.
So, I don't really need a decision tonight. I like to just make a presentation so that people will know what the item is about, and then you put it on the agenda again for next meeting.
I think the staff wants a little bit more time to think it through and think about what you're really proposing here.
Okay. That's fine.
3.6, consideration and discussion of possible action on updating the board on the Bastrop Independent School District bond and tax ratification election.
So in your packet, y'all have the 2016 tax ratification and bond election frequently asked questions from the school district. They have a really good presentation that's going on within the community in various groups, and I highly recommend not only the board but the community get an opportunity to listen to the school district on this. We were asked as the EDC, as the corporation, what our ability was to participate in supporting this issue, and really and truly from a corporation, an EDC corporation standpoint, we're extremely limited in that, but education and workforce development is an issue that this board has undertaken as a critical need within our business community. And so can we go and donate to the Political Action Committee? The short answer to that is no, we cannot. And so as a corporation, we cannot write the PAC a check. We have a legal opinion here that generally says that in longer terms. But what we can do, if the board feels that it is an issue that is important to the EDC as a group, there are some means in which we can support it through educating educating the public on why education and workforce development is a critical issue for economic development. And when you refer to your board packet, I know it, and you look at my recommendation on there, and it gets a little bit more complicated today. But if the board would like to look at those means in which we educate the public through our own campaign, and campaign's a bad word, through our own education initiative, we can do that. And the recommendation that I provide is probably, without it, I won't do anything, I can promise you that much. But if the board does so desire to want to do that, if you authorize us within the legal means necessary and within our financial controls that are in place, in the current budget that runs out at the end of the month, plus the new budget that will begin on October 1st, we as the executive director, or myself as the executive director, in consultation, we will find the legal means in which we can participate in what makes logical sense for us.
Have you distributed this to the board, our opinion on it?
Y'all all should have something that looks kind of like this.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, you're going to.
Yeah, just briefly. So what we've done, JC actually gave us an opinion that if we are promoting economic development and how the schools obviously benefit economic development in any city, we think that this bond election is going to enhance BISD's ability to even better than they are now. Obviously, they're going to have to expand because of all the people that are moving here and the demands that they've got on infrastructure. And this $75 million bond election that we're talking about is renovation as well as additional infrastructure and new buildings as well. So it's been, I think, almost 10 years since the last bond election, and it's participated in several of their meetings where they discussed this openly at the BISD. And I know the schools are important economic development, and so I asked JC to give us an opinion of that, and she gave us an opinion that, you know, if it's truly directed toward economic development, you know, for our city, then we could spend funds to sponsor potentially an article by BISD about how they want to have this the bond election, because it will enhance economic development, and they would make the argument for that, and obviously we would have an opportunity to vet that and make sure that it complies with all the issues that we have at the EDC level. So with that, I think that what we're talking about here is contributing some funds for the purpose of running some ads. And I don't think we've got a number in mind, but I know that others have given them, like $10,000 to run some ads and have some editorials published to assist with the promotion of the bond issue and how it ties back to economic development for the city.
One of the things that I started doing when I first moved back to Bastrop in 1981 was watching Round Rock, who was, maybe somewhat similar to where we are today. And one of the problems that they had getting off the ground with the growth that was coming there and how to manage it was their schools. They had the old timers or the conservatives or the non-tax people, stop bond issue after bond issue for their schools. And it made it really difficult for that community to grow. Until they broke through that barrier, they didn't really take off. We know where we're going as a community. We're going that direction. And we, the old cliche is true. If we don't take growth by the hand, it'll take us by the throat. And we've got to stay after that, and we've got to make sure that the growth we have is good. And the good growth is going to come partly because we have good schools. We know that over and over and over again. So my question, I guess, Steve, would it be legitimate or for us to do sort of what you talked about, but on our own hook? Why don't we go after it and say, the economic development of this community, say it ourselves, is largely dependent on our having quality schools. And we can't have good schools if we're not willing to pay for them. And we just encourage people to get out there and get after it. I don't know if that's it's different from our helping the schools say something. We ought to say it ourselves if that's legit. I don't know the legal stuff, but that's what I would think.
I think that's fine. Yeah,
and legally, if we're expending it under promotional purposes, we have to say it, and it has to promote the city and economic development. It cannot be money funded into the school district or into a political action committee. It has to be because you as a board feels education and workforce development, and this is a critical issue related to it, and it's going to promote the city and economic development long term. I know, Marvin.
I read this opinion, but to the extent that your public officials cannot advocate for or against.
Can't hear.
Oh, I guess I push the button better.
Or maybe close your ear just a little bit.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
You cannot advocate for or against with the expenditure of public funds or public time. All of you have a right to go out and speak your mind and in any way you want to, for or against. But the issue of using public funds or public time to influence any election is contrary to the public law for this moment. So I think it's clear that everybody here is a public official of it. Is it not? Yeah. I don't think there's any waiver of that process. So you couldn't contribute to a fund that's for the sale, for the bonds or for the other issue, or contrary to that, you couldn't speak against it. But you can participate in any kind of fact distribution. As you know, that's a very thin line between advocating and facts. But you are limited to the discussion of the facts. I'm sure of that part.
Well, I think in general what we're saying is we want to support the school system, and we know that good schools cultivates great economic development, and that's really the message. And we can write it and have it vetted by attorneys and you and others to be sure that we're within the guidelines of the law, certainly. But that's the truth of the matter is schools are very important to economic development, and we want to get that point across to the public, the Bastrop public.
Very important.
What'd you say?
She wants to know if they're going to come up.
Kristen?
I was going to make a,
Do you want the
Do you want to
microphone
say
or not?
something, Joe Beaver?
I would like to say something.
In reading J.C.'s opinion, it looks to me like it's legal if this board desires to do so, and if council approves it ultimately. It's legal for us to advocate for better schools, rehab schools, so on and so forth. I don't think that we can ask people to vote for these bonds. I mean, I don't think we can spend tax dollars to do that. But we can, if the BEDC is in charge of the wording and the placement of the advertising, we can advocate for bigger and better schools to enhance workforce development. Carlos Luriano, would this meet your test for creating jobs in the community?
Without schools, you can't have much.
So it's, what we're saying is legally back to kind of what you talked about, right?
Microphone,
Okay.
please.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
We have one public comment.
All right.
Connor?
I'd like to say that you have clearly no business as an organization that uses citizens' funds trying to determine what the outcome of an election is. You have absolutely no business doing that. You should not do it. And the fact that so few of you actually understand that is a clear indicator to me that the services of the woman that you just fired, you desperately need more of. I think what you've done tonight is a disgrace. People, especially you, Ms. Brown, Ms. Coke, have been talking about the controversy that's going on about Bastrop and how it's in the papers and what damage it's doing. We know from business owners that it is doing the damage. And you'd like to put the blame on that on the people who protest the actions.
Will you keep on point for what we're talking about this evening?
I will.
Do so,
I'm coming
please.
there, right? So I'm a citizen, right? And if you look at your organizational chart, you'll find the citizens are at the top, not at the bottom, okay? Look at the org chart. So don't start trying to shut me down, Mr. Beale. I won't appreciate it, and you won't like me if I don't appreciate it. So here's the deal. You've done a bad thing tonight. You have no business trying to influence the outcome of elections. The fact that you don't know that is an actual disgrace. You shouldn't be in the positions that you're in if that's what you think you can do.
Well, we're going for an opinion.
You've been advised also by your interim city manager, whom apparently you're not now going to listen to, who's telling you don't do it.
Well,
but you guys just carry on and do what you want, no matter what the citizens want. And I think that is not where you need to be.
The reason we're taking this action and even considering it is because of a writing that J.C. gave me last week and submitted to this board.
But the fact is, it shouldn't be coming up at all, Mr. Mills. It shouldn't be coming up at all, because anybody who's sitting on this board who thinks they should be in a position to use public funds to influence the outcome of elections, which is what you're trying to do, should know that's not right. It has nothing, the point of principle is what we're talking about here. It has nothing whatever to do with the school. It has, I don't care what the issue is. This board should not be trying to influence the outcome of an election, and that's what you're trying to do.
That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to help people understand that the BISD.
Yeah, let me just say, I think that, I thought that would be a good idea, but I think it's been really clear in what's been stated that we shouldn't do that, and we can't do that. Marvin's made a good point of it. I don't think there's a chance in the world that Christie's about to make a motion to do that. So I think, to beat us up for something that we're not doing, and that I personally, and the only person that mentioned this has now understood is not appropriate. We didn't let the process take its place. I hope Christie will make her motion.
Let's talk.
My understanding of this is that anything that we were doing was with the approval and in consultation with legal counsel, and that it was acceptable for the BEDC to support the ISDs and education in our community.
That's correct.
Are we doing anything that is marginally ethical, or, just shades of gray? Marginally ethical?
How would we know? There's no lawyer.
Sorry, well,
What's Sean's opinion? What's Marvin's?
So basically what this agenda item is if education and workforce development in quality schools it continues to be important to this board and to the community, we cannot, as Marvin pointed out probably better than I did, we can't say vote for or against something. But what we can say is as a community, education is important to education and workforce development, and having quality schools is a part of that. It's what we do in our marketing to companies, in that we have quality schools, bring your school children to come and your families to come live in Bastrop. This is an extension of, we think that education and workforce development, which continues to be the #1 site selection issue for companies, is good workforce and good talent. Schools is how you produce that, and it is more of a informational type of, we support good schools and education and workforce development as an EDC, is where we were asked to look at this, and all we did was we prepped the material, we asked for the legal opinion, and here we are.
Okay. I don't believe there's any question that you can encourage people to vote. You can educate people about the election. There's no problem with that. What you can't do is advocate one side or the other. You can't say vote for or vote against.
it's just facts.
Yeah.
We don't even really have to talk about the bond election at all.
Right, that's correct. Better not to.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion. Hello. Wait, nope. It's green.
Trey will make a motion. Got it.
Okay, I make a motion that we authorize the executive director in consultation with legal counsel to support the Bastrop ISD and bond and to support, see, we're getting in trouble. The way that's written, are we? Yeah. I don't know.
It's education and workforce development.
To support educational workforce development through legal means available to the EDC within the financial controls and current fiscal year 15-16 and adopted fiscal year 16-17 budgets.
I second.
All in favor?
Say it again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No. I'm not sure if I want to step in the mic.
Yeah.
5-1.
We 3.7.
We are 5-1.
Consideration, discussion, let's see. Consideration and discussion and possible action on input from the board and public related to the ad hoc bylaws committee proposed draft 9th amendment bylaws of the EEDC.
So the committee has worked real hard, and the committee was made up of Steve Mills, Christy Koch, Ashley Mushik, Sherry Sheena, and myself. We've spent a lot of time discussing the bylaws initially, to needing to restate the articles of incorporation for the EDC. That was completed, and they were filed at the Secretary of State's office and accepted. And so we turned back to the bylaws, and what I reported to the board last month is we hope to have those out between the meetings, to have a discussion here tonight about those draft bylaws, and really what the committee is looking for and what staff is looking for that compiles all of this is to make the public aware that they're available on our website. We have packets with both the 9th amended bylaws, the current 8th bylaws, and I believe the articles of incorporation are in the packet. We brought the 4 that are at our office here. There's several more here at City Hall. You can pick them up at the Chamber of Commerce office, and we can make more. They kind of look like this. They're also available online as well. We're also going to have on Monday, September 26th, from 5:30 to 7, we're going to have what we're terming a public input session. It's not a meeting of the board, it's not a meeting of the committee, but it's really for the public after you've reviewed them, had an opportunity to think about them, to bring us your written comments, to come and ask questions, to come and provide us input so that we can consolidate the public's view of those, as well as hopefully we'll get some comments from the board tonight or the board in the near future so that we can take all of those comments and go back and go, what are the best ideas coming from the public? Now, we did what is known as a codification, and so we went through, and if an item was in 2 places in the bylaws, we moved it to a single place that made sense. We resectioned and re-articled the thing. So there's not a red line version of the 9th amended bylaws because we moved so many things around and put them in the correct spot. There were so many deletions of things that were already in the Articles of Incorporation, which is the superior governing document that doesn't need to be repeated twice. We removed some things that were in state law that didn't need to be repeated twice to streamline them down to what is the governance of the corporation at the bylaw level. And I used a hypothetical example in my board briefing memo. If our articles of incorporation are restated every 10 years, a corporation's bylaws maybe are done every 3 to 5 years, and then there are some things that were included in the 8th bylaws that are really done by resolution, they're done by policy, they're done by board preference. And those things may change from board to board. Each June, 3 or 4 new board members are seated. In the example I used in my briefing memo to the board, this board has elected to meet on Mondays. For whatever reason, 2 boards from now, if that's in the bylaws, 2 boards from now, that board may decide that Thursday is a better day to meet on. That should be a policy decision, a resolution decision. We shouldn't need to amend the bylaws to change the meeting time or the meeting place or the meeting date of the board of directors. It could be that somebody is serving on another board and is not available on Mondays and everybody's willing to accommodate, as simple as that, to this. We meet in the city council chambers of City Hall and another board and commission moves on to Monday and they go, hey, can you move to another day? So every board on some of these items that were removed, they'll need to be considered by resolution, policy, or just board preference for certain items. One of the things that we did last year is we now have what are called internal financial control policies that this board has adopted. Those items in those IFCs can be adopted and amended by the board as it sees fit from time to time without amending the bylaws. And those 3 policies have really been effective for us. Times change. The spending limit of the EDC director is included in the bylaws. It hadn't been amended prior to the 8th amended bylaws in many years, and it was a number that I was not even, when I got here, I was not even at the same approval level for expenditure of funds as a director of the city of Bastrop. And so the board and the bylaws adjusted that. It's one of those things we'll have to bring back as an internal financial control policy should the 9th amended bylaws be adopted, and that IFC policy will set the spending and approval limit of the executive director. 10 years or 5 years from now, that number may need to change. 2 years from now, it may need to change, but it's not worthy of reopening and amending the bylaws for that, and it has to do with budgetary and a lot of different other items. But that's really what we've tried to do, and I think the committee has done an excellent job. The committee did ask that we bring in third-party outside legal counsel to advise them on this. A gentleman by the name of Charlie Zeck with a law firm out of San Antonio that represents municipalities and EDCs in the Austin and San Antonio market has been advising them on this. And he's done an excellent job, and he will be available. I believe we did not invite him tonight intentionally because the way that the agenda drafted out, we did not feel it was appropriate. But we will bring him up next month so the board can ask him specific questions related to EDC law and how we got to the 9th amended bylaws and what you see in front of you. So what we're asking for is comments that you have. We prefer them in writing. And if you're from the public and you want to come ask questions, the input session is coming up on the 26th. If you're the board, we ask that you don't come to the public input session because we're not posting a meeting of the board of directors. We will have staff there. We may have a couple of committee members that are there as well to visit with the public and get their input on it.
So what do you do with the input you've already got? What do you do with the input you've already gotten, like from me?
So what we'll do after the 26th, we will compile all those and group them together of what people's concerns were, and I suspect that there will be areas that we will get 2 or 3 public inputs on that one item. And so we'll group them together to be able to say, and I don't know that we will, I guess we have to ask the question, do we want to put the community member's name of who recommended what? But we'll definitely group them together of community member A said, this is what we're looking for. Community member B said the same thing, so that we can group together what's important to the community and where we got input in the various items. It's a discussion to be had whether we actually use the community member's name or not. And it may be up to them whether or not we use their name. But that's kind of where we're thinking, and then the committee looking at it and then bringing that document back to the board of going, from the draft amended bylaws that were released to the public, here's the changes, the red line changes we made from the community input, from the board input, is kind of where I see it going. And then having a much larger discussion next week, or next month, excuse me, at the regular board meeting about what's being proposed.
So the board would see the input in time to put something on the agenda for that when we discuss it, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think the board needs to probably have some kind of workshop session related to this at the next meeting to make sure that every opinion is being considered and all that's, every item, it's all being vetted and being vetted thoroughly. I think that having Charlie come up, who's been through this process with the committee, is extremely important. So that he can give his input from his perspective of working with the committee and what items they felt were important.
So what this board finally will see is the proposed bylaws. What this board will finally see.
Hit that little mute button. Green.
And it'll turn green.
There you go.
What this board will finally see is the committee's version of the proposed bylaws that we would adopt. And we'll be able to see the changes from the current bylaws. And then this board will see the public's recommendations and the committee's acceptance or proposed rejection of the public's recommendations. And then this board will make the decision ultimately about what those bylaws will finally say. Is that the process?
Would you let them know that we want to do a red line of that? Because that's one of the things I didn't notice, if you just kind of repeat that.
Yeah, we're gonna attempt to go back and do the best that we can and provide some kind of annotation of where we went from the 8th to the 9th. Angela and I have a red line version, but it's not easy to read. And so I'm not real sure how we can actually reproduce an easily to read. So we may come up with some kind of annotation method. We have a version like that we've looked at as staff where we've annotated the changes in the margin versus a red line version. I think that's probably where we're going, but on the public comments, I think we'll vet those through the committee as well. And here's how the comments were grouped, and I think the committee needs to go, yes, we agree with them, and we redline the 9th amended as they've been proposed and drafted, or they rejected it and they give some explanation of why they rejected it. There are some things that we hear from the public on a regular basis. The EDC's bylaws need to say X, Y, and Z, but then you crack open section 505 of the local government code, and the government code says something completely different. That's not, and so the public doesn't always understand the legal constraints. We actually have within the local government code governance for this board of directors that affects our articles of incorporation, that affects our bylaws that you can adopt. In the articles are the superior document, and the local government code is the superior document to that. The interesting thing about, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not giving legal advice for sure, we actually have sections of the Nonprofit Corporation Act, the Texas Business Act, that actually apply to this corporation because you're a nonprofit corporation. And that's where EDC law gets a little bit complicated, is when we get out of the government code and we get into that Nonprofit Corporation Act and the Texas Business Act. What do those apply to us and what doesn't? That's why we've got to have a lawyer that's assisting the committee in this. We're required to file a Form 990 every year as a nonprofit corporation, which is something a lot of people probably don't realize. And so sometimes the governance of an EDC corporation is a little bit more complex than a normal board or commission in the city of Bastrop.
Okay.
Herb, do you want to come speak now?
Yeah, I can talk louder now.
Oh.
My thing is, after the public input, and then after you guys look at it, and then you make the changes and you come up with a final document, will you have a public hearing before you make a decision on the actual bylaws? So in other words, are you going to have a public hearing on your approved bylaws before you adopt them in the open meeting?
I would think the process would be, once we bring it back to the board and hold the workshop, if the board's accepting of those at the next meeting, it depends upon how we word the agenda item, but they could adopt them at that meeting. But if there's significant changes coming out of that meeting in October, we'll have to take them back and wordsmith them correctly and bring it back at the November meeting. So I can't answer that question. I think at the October...
But I'm proposing that you do have a public hearing. After you finally decide on what it is, what the bylaws are going to be, and have a public hearing so everybody gets to look at the final, because each thing impacts the other, in terms of changes. So, yes, thank you for the public comment, but I think you should have a public hearing regarding the final.
I think that's the purpose of it'll be a budget, it'll be a workshop for us. It won't be a public hearing. But that's the purpose of the workshop, is for the public to view the final version and then come provide input. And the board can then instruct us to make additional changes based on that public input, and we bring it back at a later meeting for adoption.
Just make that clear on the agenda.
Yeah, and it will be, because it'll be a whole separate workshop session about this item. And we hopefully will have it posted early enough that you won't be getting it with the agenda packet, that you'll have it a week or 2 weeks in advance. Yeah. This is running on a totally different timeline than a normal agenda item for us. We're trying to release this stuff as soon as we have it available and be transparent about it.
Right.
All right. And that's all I have.
Okay. 4.1. There we are, 4.1.
Yeah, 4.1.
4.1, BEDC Project Center Business Update.
So my staff report is in your packet. As we discussed last month, when we get the director's report from City Hall and it's posted to the website, we're forwarding that out to y'all, or we should be forwarding that out to Okay, we haven't had one since we said that last month. But we're going to be forwarding out the director's reports to the board outside of the board meeting. It used to be that Angela would take the city manager's report and cut and paste what was important to the board, but we think that everything that's in that director's report is important, and so we're just going to forward it to the board members. It's already available to the public on the city website. So my report is in here. A busy month of meetings and conferences and events and marketing ongoing. We're very pleased with where our project load is. You're going to see a few changes over the next couple months. We're also going to move my report here inside of the board packet to a more data-driven report. We talked last month about A, B, C, and D projects and how many we're working on. We're going to try to update that put it in a format that it's easy for us to update that on a monthly basis so that you, the public, and the board can see what our project load is and where we're working at those are. We did have a couple of businesses down on Main Street that we've worked with lately, Copper Shot Distillery. We worked with the Toadies initially in their CUP application, and then it had been months and months, but the quilt shop that's opening on Main Street, we provided her technical assistance about locating in Bastrop. We're actually having to scour our notes to figure out exactly when she was in, but Gene and I met with her when she was considering going down on Main Street, so we're very excited that both those projects are moving forward. We have closed on 903, and Mr. Townsend and I are working on 921 and moving that project forward. Other than that, this is really just operational updates on what's going on at the EDC. Sarah put her Main Street program report in here, and she is not here tonight, but on top of the two that we worked with her and Main Street and the business owners, but there's also 2 additional businesses that have located down on Main Street, and we're real happy with that. But if y'all have questions for Sarah, just shoot them to Sarah or shoot me an email and let me know. We did make a mistake, I will admit it. We did not put a comprehensive plan update in here, and that is actually my fault. But we will get an update out to the board here in the coming days about where the comprehensive plan is and how that is moving forward. Any question about updates, reports, or announcements? And I know, Kelly, do you want to speak on this?
Just on this last agenda,
Oh, 5.1?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No. Anything else? Moving on? So this is a change from previous months, and I think it's one that we're going to try this out for a few quarters. We moved what used to be on my staff report, future agenda items listed out there and who requested them, to back to agenda line item 5, which is board input on future agenda items, and kind of giving an explanation where those future agenda items are in preparation. I think this is actually going to be more valuable than probably my staff report because it'll allow y'all, the community and the board, to see where we're at and what we're working on related to these items. The LED parking lot 921 Main is a city request to us, and I don't know that anything's going to come of that, but I want the public to know that they have requested that from us, and you can read about it in my memo. If you don't have a copy, we'll get you a copy. Water and wastewater planning and future annexations, one that I do want to hit on with the board here real quick. We met with city staff on this, and there were too many unknowns currently still for us to give you an update on this. As some of those questions and thresholds are answered, we are going to come give you an update on what the city's planning in water and wastewater, but they could give you a report today, and 3 months from now it'll be completely different because there's still some decisions on the city side that have nothing to do with us that need to be made related to those. And I hope that it kind of explains.
Let me comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thought on that, Sean, was not that we would find out what the city was doing, but that what does this board want to influence the city council in terms of what we think is important in terms of annexation policy. What difference would it make, for economic development in our community if the city did this, that, or the other regarding annexation? I'm looking, as a person that wears two hats here, I'm looking for input as a part of the council from this board, not just, does that make sense? Is that a different perspective than what you said?
No.
Or did I misunderstand you?
So the water, when I met with staff, the water and wastewater decisions are critically important to what those annexation discussions are going to be. And it's a chicken or egg thing. And so generally the idea is let's pin all those together, and when all those water and wastewater decisions are ultimately made, or we've got a path forward, I guess is a better way to put it, then update the board and let the board have a discussion about annexation and wanting to have influence on it. But Mr. Townsend and his staff, there's still some thresholds that they need to go to council and get some clarification on what that path forward is. And I think I lay out kind of what some of the issues are at the moment as I understand them and as they were explained to me. The Houston toad habitat issue, item D, was requested by a past board member. We're still looking at it. We don't have any idea where that's going at the moment. We have no path forward on it. We're not spending a lot of resources on it or any resources other than a little bit of staff time. If we can figure out a path forward, we'll bring it to the board and be transparent about it. But at the moment, we don't have a path forward, and so we're still in that research phase in trying to figure out what are those development issues and is there anything even the EDC could even do. Approval of the Ninth Amendment bylaws, obviously we already had that discussion. And I don't know that we'll go with that in depth on this in the future, but I think it's letting y'all know where we're at on these future agenda items in writing is a direction I think we're going to go versus just listing them out. Because some of these have been on there for months and months and months, and at least from the public's perspective, y'all can think that you're not doing anything, you're just delaying it, but in reality, there's a lot of information that has to be gathered, a lot of research that has to be done. You can't call me 2 weeks from now and say, hey, I go make this happen. Some of these things take 3, 6, 12 months of planning to put them on the agenda. So I know Kelly had signed up to speak on this.
Speaking specifically about this memorandum, which I appreciate the detail in here. Thank you. Because it is more useful to see than just a line item. The item about items B and C, water and wastewater and annexation, it says Angela Ryan and I met with city staff, including Trey Joe, Melissa McCullum, and Wesley Brandon, but I don't see the city manager in that meeting. And I think that's key. It was a problem when I was on council. It seems to be a problem. We've got to keep the city manager involved in any discussions that are legitimately city business. He's not included in this, and that's a red flag for me. Will you endeavor to include him in future meetings?
Yeah, we'll make sure that we communicate it's his choice if he would like to participate. It was really just that was really bring me up to speed, and as the experts in water, wastewater, and planning, informational meeting to provide me the background that I needed to know.
Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can.
We'll get you a mic.
You want this one? You have this one.
I can assure you that I'll be fully advised of what was being discussed. I knew there were meetings. Yeah.
Should. Okay. Then reading the items about water, wastewater, and annexation, the descriptions in here, one statement really caught my eye, and I hope that you can explain what it means. When you're talking about water, wastewater, you say all of these items really influence potential involuntary annexation. How would the EDC have anything to do with involuntary annexation?
We would, but what the item the mayor asked us to look at back 6 months ago, 9 months ago, was would we like to provide input on areas of future annexation and provide comment to that. And maybe I'm assuming wrong, but I looked at it as involuntary annexation areas, not as in somebody that approached us with a development and said, I want to voluntarily be annexed. And there's clarification there. Somebody that wants to be voluntarily annexed with their development is different than somebody that's wanting to be involuntarily annexed. So
Right. Well, I'm just wondering what the EDC's role in that would be, because that's generally a city thing. Ken, you want to explain what you were thinking?
I'll try again. Kelly. What I said to Kevin a minute ago was, I hope that EDC will put its EDC hat on and give to the city council any information or input or ideas or thoughts that they have about annexation, because it's one of our big issues for our planning. And so we haven't talked about it very much. Marvin and I haven't got a chance to deal with it at any length, but Mike and I were talking about it before he resigned, and we just haven't quite gotten there yet. But I think the idea that, I think it was in our January meeting, that we put that as a pretty high priority. So I came in here trying to figure out what my job was being on both boards. So I asked, what would the input be? And so for me, I don't know what kind of annexation it is, but is there something that the EDC sees? For example, I don't know if this is the answer, but the EDC might say, please annex as many houses as you can so that we can have more people buying stuff and paying sales tax. Or we might say, please only annex businesses and commercial stuff for some reason. I have no idea what this board would say, because I'm probably the least informed of all here. But I think that the council needs to hear from this board what its perspective is. I want to hear from planning and zoning and citizens and everybody else, because it's a big time issue for us. And I want to hear from everybody. And that's my starting point. Is all I have is a question. That's it. Is there something the EDC would like to say to the council about annexation? Period. I mean, is that clear?
That's fair enough. I mean, the EDC does have a role in looking at potential economic development areas. Fair enough. But when Councilmember McAnally at the last meeting tried to ask the interim city manager, Mr. Townsend, to look at annexation, she was shut down right away and told that you wanted the EDC to look at it first. I think that's a little bit backwards. I think that's a city decision, because the city has to be able to fund all those services that they're going to have to supply, regardless of how many jobs might be created. The city has to look at it first. So try not to put the cart before the horse, and make sure that the EDC is working in conjunction with the city and not bringing it, this is what we need, both city rubber stamps it.
No, I think it goes both ways. I mean, you're right, Kelly, and I think we're all in this together. That's what I'm trying to say. I agree with you 100%.
Okay, good. And I just had one other question. The 9th amended bylaws is on here too, and I just thought of something. In the old BEDC bylaws, the procedure to hire the city attorney was in the old bylaws, I believe, and it's not in these. Is it in the articles of incorporation or somewhere else now? Or is that procedure changing?
So the attorney works for the corporation, and I don't know when it got removed, but it's not within the bylaws and it's not in the current articles who hires the attorney. Under the precept that we operate now is, because it's beyond my spending limit, the board of directors, whoever the next attorney will be, will need to be involved in the hiring process and engage them. So it's different than being on city council, where it's in the city charter that the city council hires the city attorney. Here it's the corporation, and the corporation is the whole of the body. And so it is this board, when we go through the RFQ process, they'll have to agree to enter into that engagement for those day-to-day legal services, because ultimately it extends beyond my spending authority as an EDC director on an annualized basis. And so it becomes a decision of the board for that particular attorney because of the amount that we're spending. And
so is it stated there in the articles of incorporation or somewhere in the? It
is not. It's just a governance board issue that whenever we get to that point down the road, we'll bring whatever that RFQ committee ends up deciding and recommending. It could be, let's interview 2 attorneys, let's interview 1 attorney, here's our recommendation, whatever it may be, the board then will take action on it.
No, I'm just talking about the procedure for it, not that committee, but the procedure on who, like say you vet someone for the job. And then where does it say that you bring it to the board for approval?
It comes under the financial expenditure, because we're going to spend more than $10,000 in a year, it needs to come to the board for approval.
So it's covered under there?
Yeah.
So that's why they took it out of the...
I don't know why they took it out, but I can tell you that's how we're treating it now, is because of the amount we spend on an annualized basis. That's why the engagement is with the corporation and the board needs to approve it.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Let me comment on that just briefly. I kind of look at it as basically we have a committee that meets, and that's when we hire, our executive directors, kind of the same situation. The board will meet and form a committee that would hire the attorney, and basically you go through a vetting process with them, just like we did the executive director. And it's generally, I think it would be an attorney, but it could be a corporation, or it could be a professional corporation, or an attorney group. We don't know. This is kind of new ground for us, but because we've had, basically JC has been pretty much a sole proprietorship, and she's the only attorney that we really interfaced with, except from time to time on a specialty item that you needed an outside expertise on. So anyway, I don't see that it has to be a part of the articles of incorporation or in the bylaws, frankly. It's just, it's a
as long as the board gets ultimate approval, I think that's fair enough.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Somebody want this?
Glenn?
Thank you. This is my first meeting at the BEDC. I'm a little bit shocked because it turns out that I didn't realize that the BEDC is a lobby group. I'm going to lobby the citizenry about how to vote in the bond election. It's going to be under legal counsel, which of course you don't have anymore. The mayor is seeking lobbyists from the BEDC to tell the city what to do. And it's my understanding under this form of government we have, everybody's forgetting the citizens. The citizens decide those things. The city manager is supposed to run the city. The council sets policy based on the fact that they're elected by the citizens. And this idea of lobbyists, I am curious, who was the former board member that wanted to talk about the Houston toad habitat? Was that a former board member Schiff?
It was.
Because his current development is in the toad habitat area, I suppose, the one that wasn't considered tonight. I just, the edge that you are walking across is very, you're getting pretty close to the edge. There are requirements for what this board does, and the council ought to be setting the policy for the city, not vice versa. Let's listen to the citizens. Let them elect their council people, and then you, as the committee designed to look at the development, do your job. Don't lobby the city, even if the mayor wants you to.
Sir, I'm sorry, what is your name?
My name is Glenn Johnson. I live at 1109 Pecan. We're neighbors.
Well, welcome, neighbor.
Well, I don't know if I really like being in this meeting because it's scary to me. Because this unelected committee is now being asked to lobby the school board, to lobby the citizenry, to advise the city council on what policy it should have. And someone pointed out previously, we've got a nice graph about who's in charge of this city. And the citizens are on the top. And I think people are forgetting that.
Okay.
Thank you. Mayor, you were just agreeing with Kelly on something, but I'm not quite sure what it was. Was it that this should have gone through the council first and then come to the EDC without annexation?
Okay, what I was saying, let's see, that's not green, hang on. How's that? No, what I'm saying is that I think that the city council needs to hear from everybody you can possibly hear from. Citizens, planning and zoning board, every entity that we've got, vision task force, you've always got great ideas, and the EDC about what we ought to be considering in terms of annexation policy. We have talked about it in general. Kelly, I think, was saying that it shouldn't be one or the other. Well, help me out, Kelly. I think you were saying that the board shouldn't be driving the city, or was that? And I said, I think we're all in this together, and certainly the city council will make the ultimate decisions. But I think that I'm an information gatherer. I think our council wants to gather information, and I think that the more information we have, the better for whoever it is. I mean, that's why we're listening to folks tonight. I think we do that at council. So I think
Except I asked you specifically, Mayor, last time, if we can instruct I asked for the council, and you shut me down as well as Gary Schiff, saying that we weren't going to discuss annexation until we had a permanent city manager.
Well,
and that you said you did not want this discussed until we had a permanent city manager. So why are we talking about it at EDC?
I don't remember saying that, but if I did, let's put it on the agenda whenever Marvin's ready. If I've been asking, when did I ask for this? 6 months ago? We talked about it in January.
You didn't talk to council about it?
We talked in January at our special meeting about it out at Hyatt.
No, sir.
Well, we have different members.
So
Let's go
here's
check
the
their
thing.
I'm not
You
sure
told
maybe
me
this.
you told me to wait until there's a permanent city manager. So now you're saying that we can go ahead and talk about this on council. Is that correct?
I'd be happy to talk.
Okay, good.
If you bring it, if you bring it up, we can put it on the agenda. I don't remember saying that to you. I'm not sure this is the time to be having this conversation, but why don't you give me a call tomorrow? We'll put it on the agenda for the 27th.
Why don't you give me a call?
We've got a council meeting going on at BEDC.
Yeah.
Stop.
The last one on this item is Connor McAnally.
I'd just like to echo some of the things Glenn Johnson said. But one of the things I'm very concerned about is that what's going on here tonight is not the first time that the mayor of our city is bringing things to BEDC before they go to council proper. And my concern about that is this. All of the people on this board are appointed by the mayor. So this is a non-elected body. So what's happening now is the mayor is inviting a non-elected body that he appoints the people onto to discuss things that have not yet come to the city and influence the city on what its decision-making should be. I think that's totally, completely, and absolutely out of order, and it needs to stop, and it should stop immediately. Thank you.
Well, I guess I need to respond to that. The mayor of the city of Bastrop appoints people by our charter, and council members approve the board members. So it's a joint process. It's a process that begins with people volunteering to be on boards, and the mayor making an appointment, the council approving. There's not anybody here except me that wasn't approved by the council, and I was voted on by the citizens to be on this board. I think that to say that we shouldn't everybody in this community, I think it's what you and Mr. Johnson are saying, everybody in this community ought to be involved in everything we do. You should be trying to give your input and your expertise and the benefit of your wisdom to the council. And I think this board, for goodness sakes, it's the most important board outside the city council we have, ought to be giving our advice to the city council about what this board sees. That's all I'm asking. And if that's a matter of trying to get the board to tell the council what to do, I assure you, you can't tell our council what to do. They will decide what they want, but they need to be informed and
have people give suggestions and input. We get that all the time. It's really important. That's all I'm asking for. I don't think it's unreasonable at all.
Future agenda.
So future agenda items, have any future agenda items you'd like to discuss at this point or add?
Ready for executive session?
We need to go into executive session? All right, we're going to call executive session at this point, so we're going to adjourn.
Yeah, the BEDC Board of Directors will meet in closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Chapter 551 to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, including but not limited to potential sales, acquisitions, exchanges, leases, dispositions, or values of real properties and/or property owned and/or considered for acquisition, use, lease, or conveyance by the BEDC. Tissue, test tube, arugula, Kentucky, apple orchard, and/or Big Bend. We're in executive session.
Okay, we're in executive session now.
Would you care for some candy?
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Move us back into regular session.
Sorry. Okay, we're adjourning executive session, but now back in open session. Now do I have
Now I
a
motion
motion to, okay, adjourn. All in favor? We have a second? Oh, yeah, we got a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.